I think I spent around $500 to $600 on the brand new Xerjoff fragrances. I don't remember exactly. I'll pop it somewhere on the screen, but I know that I spent a lot of money on the newest releases from Xerjoff. I've got a huge collection of Xerjoff fragrances and I've purchased every single one of them, including these two. The newest Louis fragrance and also Torino 24. I also got a couple of samples to see whether or not I want to buy any of the newest ones. And here's what I have to say about all of these. Torino 24. Presentation for Xerjoff bottles are definitely outstanding, but I think nowadays most people are throwing away their boxes, including me, but it does make it feel kind of like a crime to throw this out. Regardless of the facts, I will be throwing it out. Before smelling the fragrance, the notes definitely captured my attention because it's got mango and plum. First, right there, I'm just sold immediately. And then the orange flower is also another signature to the cake, or the icing on the cake, I should say, drying down to something with white musk and oak moss. And I have to say that on an initial impression, it did blow me away. It was like an 8.5 to damn near a 9. Very fresh, crisp, invigorating, and also having that unique touch of mango. In the opening, it was like a 9. I got like this white floral orange flower with a lot of citruses, very fresh, energizing, citrusy fruits with a tropical touch. Notes of mandarin and mango is what shines the most, and then the plum starts to rumble in a little bit later on, I would say within the first 5 to 10 minutes. The opening, magical, smells fantastic. It's light, has a floral note known as pink lotus that gives it a watery and fresher feel, slightly aquatic, keeping this one light and refreshing. But then after about 20 minutes, it starts to get thick, and the orange flower that's used in this one is that of an indolic quality, so it's pretty fatty and creamy, turning into what smells like a mango mandarin, hints of plum lotion. In the beginning, it was fantastic, and if it stayed that way, it would have been great. It was a 9 in the opening, and as it started to dry down, it turned into something like a 7.25. And the biggest reason is because it turned a little too creamy. What first started off as like a texture of, think of conditioner, so light, creamy, yes, but not nearly as thick of something like lotion, shortly developed into something a lot more creamier, indolic, and fatty. And while there isn't anything wrong with that per se, I just really enjoyed the way that this one opened up. So overall score for this one, starting off at like a 9 to a 9.5, with it drying down to like a 7 to a 7.2, I think it's fair to give this one around an 8, an 8.25 at best. Next one is a Louis. I'm really bad with my Roman numerals. I think it's Louis 25. Presentation, very nice stuff, man. And he's actually stepped up his game. So Xerjoff, you kill it with the presentations. Velvet finish, outstanding, man. I really feel bad that I'm gonna be throwing these, but space. I moved because I don't have space, let alone keep the boxes. Anyway, so there you go with the box. I'm sorry. All right, so presentation on this one is a little bit different. It kind of reminds me of their Stars collection, except on the top, it has those saint emblems. Louis 25, 1722 on the front. It says tap to connect. It must be an app or something, I don't know. This one, very unusual. And I have to admit that I don't think I'm appreciating it right now. And the reason why I'm saying right now is because a lot of these unusual fragrance DNAs end up being a love sometimes. When it's a very unusual, sometimes it's hard to decipher. You still kind of have to come around to it, try and appreciate it again. But I think I'm leaning more so towards the I don't like it side of things than anything else. So the opening of this one has a hefty dose of champagne. There's also plum, saffron, grapefruit. It opens up extremely crisp, invigorating, and carbonated. It absolutely has like this spiced citrus and jammy vibe. It's so different. It's very unusual. And then as it starts to dry down, you get like this foamy and frothy style of lavender with a combination or a side of like coffee and hazelnut. I'm telling you guys, it's wild. Both of these are extremely well crafted. I'll give them that. The way that this is composed is truly artistic because you get different nuances and you get these combinations where it's just like, what the? Like, not in a bad way per se. So the notes of this one, hear me out. It's got rose, champagne, plum, saffron, coffee. There's also chocolate, there's sandalwood, incense. And the only reason I'm sharing the notes is because of how crazy the combination is. Because truly, who cares about the notes? It's what you smell. It isn't anything I can decipher exact. It just smells like citrus spiced champagne with a side of hazelnut coffee and maybe like a foam of lavender. Like, yeah, I think one of the coffee shops once upon a time had like a lavender infused style of whipped cream or some kind of coffee. That along with a side of champagne. I'm telling you guys, it's mind blowing. It's different, but it's definitely not for me. The opening was tolerable, and then as it started to dry down, it was just like, no, it was just too much for me. And like I said, I don't want to be too harsh on it because it is extremely unique, so I appreciate the artistic essence of that. The 1722 on here is referencing Louis the 25th, who basically ruled France for like 59 years. And so I would imagine that this should have some kind of old school essence to it, and probably inspired by some French old school aspects of perfumery, which I can absolutely sense in this one. Coming very specifically from the type of lavender used in this one. So typically speaking, old school fragrances did this whole fougere aromatic vibe that kind of recreated the note or the accord of fern. And they did this with the combination of lavender and oak moss more traditionally and in a more modern sense. And a couple of other notes that they would use to recreate that accord. With this one, it doesn't technically have the note of oak moss, but I am absolutely getting that old school vibe in this fragrance overall. And per Xerjoff's website, they do state or claim that this is an artistic exploration of House de Vaunan, one of the most important libraries in Champagne. And with me being halal, astaghfirullah al-azim, I wouldn't know nothing about that. And this is supposed to basically smell like champagne and the way that it develops and opens up on skin. And being somebody who doesn't really drink, doesn't really like the scent of champagne to begin with, this fragrance is obviously not going to be for me. What I wanted to rate it was a neutral 5 just because of its appreciation, its saving grace being of that artistic expression. But truth be told, I would be lying to say that I don't dislike it more than I am neutral about it. So for me, this is like a 4 out of 10. I do appreciate the artistic expression, but as a fragrance, I have to stay true to my ratings being something that I like. I don't like it. I mean, I don't think it's atrocious, and 5 is neutral. It's below neutral for me. Now with Sketchbook, this is another one that I find to smell pretty designer-esque, except done in a niche way. It actually has like this spiced mandarin and cinnamon, kind of giving me vibes of very popular bubblegummy style fragrances that are designer, but absolutely done in a higher fashion. However, there is something in here that for me personally didn't really work and was borderline giving me a headache. It's gotta be some kind of funk or some kind of amber that's in this one that really doesn't do it for me. So I will not be picking up Sketchbook P33. Next one, Torino, the original one. Too spicy for me. There's something about this one that just doesn't do it. The spices, the woods, it's very dry, brittle, too dry and too spicy. It's like straight up woods, black pepper, and neroli. And even the neroli itself, it's not as creamy or as indolic to kind of balance or blend it out. So I don't really enjoy it. For Sketchbook P33, I would give this one like a 7 at best. And for Torino, I wouldn't give this more than about a 5.4. The next one is called Via Cavour 1. This is a really good dark chocolate, cranberries, oud rose fragrance. Now for this one, I do give this like an 8.3, I would say. In the beginning, it's all about this chocolate covered red berries, and then it starts to dry down, showing and revealing this acidic rose and oud combination, while still holding on to and maintaining that chocolate berry style of scent. I have smelled fragrances like this before, but typically speaking, they'll have a higher dose or some dose of like saffron. This one kind of being a little bit more mellow, if any saffron is present in this one, which I don't believe it is. It does go more towards the ambery side of things, but one of the star players in this one is absolutely going to be that unripened, sour style of rose and oud combination. It does smell pretty damn good, and it dries down into something very smooth and refined, a bit more smooth than some of those more metallic saffron and oud rose chocolate combinations. The only other fragrance that I would compare this to in my collection would be Arabian Oud's Risala. This one does seem to be a little bit more westernized than that and taming that saffron, not as like crazy in that metallic vibe. And for that reason, I think it's a really good fragrance. I would give this one like an 8.5, and after wearing it could potentially go up from there and maybe even turn into a 9. Last but not least, has to be my favorite one out of all of these, and I kind of wish that I got a full bottle of this. It's called Aridol or Aridol, and this is a dry, woody iris fragrance. I love the note of iris, and especially iris that uses like this buttery, crayon, lipsticky type of vibe, and this has that. It has that, but it's also very masculine because it includes like at least 3 types of woods that's just very dry and brittle and woodsy, masculine. The actual notes of this one includes patchouli, papyrus, benzoin. Papyrus is usually the one that's responsible for the very dry style of woods, at least in this one. Also couple that with a buttery orris, some jasmine, cashmere, and kind of softening the whole brittle vibe, but it's still absolutely there. Very intensive and pungent woods in this one as well, including cypress, and then spiced up with some nutmeg and peppers. You do have to enjoy those very dry and brittle woods, and also that buttery iris seals the deal for me. I give this one an 8.8. I rocked it for about 4 hours. I want to get a full wearings in with this one, and it will possibly and very likely turn into a full bottle worthy fragrance. So there you have it, my last haul from Xerjoff.